welcome back to my channel. Today I will be showing you how I did this glossy leopard print with a matte background and a rainbow glitter peekaboo with a chrome holographic offset. This is a lot going on with this tumbler. You can kind of see the scratches and I'll explain why when we get to that part, but let's get started. So I took some matte white flat primer after I sanded my tumbler a little bit and I base coated it. So when you're doing neon colors, you want to base your tumbler with a white spray paint first because that'll make the colors pop when you put it on top. If you do it just on a stainless steel tumbler, it won't work. So these are the neon colors I used, except for the Rust-Oleum. Ended up being terrible, so I switched over to Krylon for that green. So I just started off with the pink at the bottom. And again, you can go in any way that you want. I've done them where it was just pink, orange, and yellow. You could do just green, blue, and purple, or whatever you wanted to do. So I just kept switching off. I moved on to the next color. I did orange next. And fluorescent colors really blend well, so I really like doing the ombre with the orange, or I'm sorry, with the neon or fluorescent, whatever you want to call it. I really think it looks cool. So here's the yellow, and then I'll do green, and then I'll do blue, and I'll do a bigger section of blue because then I'll do pink on top of that blue, and that will give me a brighter purple. So once I go over all of the colors once, here you'll see me doing the pink over the blue, which will allow it to be just a hint of purple at the top. Yeah, I could never find any purple fluorescent colors, so I just end up mixing the two, and that works well. And then once I do that, I kind of go over the colors again to make sure that they're pretty well blended. Please excuse my RBF. I don't know why I look so angry while I do this. I think it's just because I'm concentrating. So I went back over with the pink, and then I did the orange again, and then you'll see me yelling for my boyfriend to grab me another green that I have over there that is the Krylon version because I hated the green that I was using. The reason why I went back over it, one is to make the colors brighter, and two, because I wanted to make sure that blend looked good. So as you can see, it kind of goes from a bright orange to a lighter orange to a yellow, and then I'll have that green. And here's me showing him that I have this green and I need him to grab me another green, and I'm pointing to where it's at and waiting for him because he's working out. Oof, your girl needs to work out. Okay, so anywho, once I finally get that green, I go back over with all the colors, and then I will show you the next step. Also, I want to add a little tidbit is after you shake your cans before you use, if you spray them upside down, they're less likely to clog. I don't know if it's proven. That's what I've heard, so that's what I do. So just a little tip there. So once your color's dry, you are going to then epoxy. So when you're doing epoxy and you're glittering, you want to use a thin coat of epoxy. So I'm pretty sure I probably did 5 milliliters in this cup, so 2.5 and 2.5. And I'm using Ultra Clear Fast Set from CC DIY. If you're not used to doing this many colors on a cup at one time, I would recommend using regular resin so your epoxy doesn't start curing before you're finished. So I made approximately 5 milliliters, but I probably only used 2 to 3. I had other projects in the works, so I didn't mind having that extra epoxy. I use FIFO squeeze bottles because it's better to get the measurements, and I use medicine cups and popsicle sticks. This is before I started using infinity sticks, which are reusable. I have so many popsicle sticks, so you'll see me use them throughout my videos until I get rid of them, because I have the infinity sticks by DIY Epoxy, which there's a link for in the description. So I mix thoroughly, make sure it's good to go. The glitters that I'm using are all from Peachy Olive Glitter. I'll list them below in the description, but I usually start off with chunky glitters first and then use a finer glitter. The reason why I really like Peachy Olive Glitter is because they have the same colors in different cuts. So that's what makes it easier to ombre, to blend colors and everything else. So I'll just list off what I got and what I used, and I'll also link it in the description below. But from Peachy Olive Glitters, I used Cool Mom, Regina George, Orange Julius, Starburst, Lemon Heads, Double Dare. I think I used Oscar in this, but if not, I recommend it. It's a great chunky glitter. Gnarly, Bejeweled, and Baby Violet. And then I ended up covering the entire tumbler with Bliss to fill in any little gaps that I didn't get with all the other colors. And Bliss is just like a very fine opalescent white. So again, I start off at the bottom. I start off with chunky. I do a thin coat. Literally, you are dragging this this epoxy across your tumbler and doing a super thin coat. If you do too thick of a coat, it can kind of swallow your glitter and make it look like you have wet patches in your glitter, which isn't ideal. So super thin coat, I promise you it works. Just try it out. If you have trouble smoothing it out, use a heat gun, heat up your tumbler first. That'll make it easier to move the epoxy around with using less epoxy. So I'm going to go ahead and speed up this video a little bit because this is going to be a very long tutorial if I do not speed up certain parts. So you'll just watch me glitter. I use parchment wax paper that I got off of Amazon. It's a 500 sheet pack. Again, I can link it in the description. It's what I use for all my glittering. So I'm going to go ahead and speed it up now and we'll move on to the next step. So with chunky glitter, once you put it on, you can also add, do a little parchment paper to push it down a little bit. So I don't think I ended up putting the Bliss over top of it, or the Brite over top of it, the Brite glitter. I think I ended up just mixing it into the epoxy. So I'm doing a flood coat, which is a coat when the first coat hasn't fully cured and it evens out both, and it's just fantastic. And I can do another video on epoxy and just different methods and different things. But for now, I epoxy until smooth. The next step you'll see is me sanding it down, and then I wipe it down with 91% alcohol, and then I add another layer of epoxy. Wow, I can't talk today. I add another layer of epoxy, and the reason why you want your tumbler smooth is because you're going to be spray painting over it, and when you add that spray paint on top of that glitter, if there's any bumps, you're going to see it, and you don't want to see it. So you will see this. I'm going to end up torching this in a second, but those are all the next steps. Again, I'm going to speed up the process a little bit because right now I have this video at an hour and a half, and I don't think anyone wants to sit here for an hour and a half and watch this. So here we go. All right, so there's a bunch of bumps in there because there's a lot of chunky glitter. So I use a sanding block that I got off of Amazon. They're approximately 120 grit, and I literally just go through and sand it. And if you use good quality polyester glitter, you don't have to worry about the color coming off of your glitter. If you're using craft glitter, that's another story. Don't use craft glitter. Just use polyester glitter. Be better. So once you get this as smooth as you can, again, this is 120 grit. I hit the edges, I hit the rims, I hit the bottom. I then wipe it down with 91% alcohol, and then I add another layer of epoxy, and then we're going to move on to the next step. So I've already done a video on how to do an offset and how to download fonts on your phone. So I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but I will show you how it is a little bit different with this project. So I'm going to open the image that I created in Fonto, which again, I have a video on how to do that. I'll link it below. So here's Rachel's name. I'm going to erase everything but the black lines, which for some reason was difficult for me to do. So undo. And then once you do that, you're going to save as a cut image. And then I'll show you what you need to do that's a little bit different from the video that I had previously done. So once you do all that, you're going to click on the image and upload it to Design Space. So you're actually going to duplicate this image 3 times, but first you're going to get it to the size decal that you need first. Then you're going to duplicate it 3 times. I only did it twice on here because I messed up, but that's all right. So I duplicated it twice. One image is going to be fully all black. One image is going to be just the words without the offset, and then one is going to be the offset. So the first one I did, I erased the background, which I was not doing okay with this app for some reason. So I erased it. So I'm sorry, I didn't. I just kept it all black. And then I have just the words like I do here. And I take out, make sure everything is gone that I know will be in there. And then once I do that, I end up duplicating this again and then making it so that I have the offset. So the first one on top is the one you're going to lay down before you spray paint. The second one is going to be the one that you lay over top of everything when you matte the tumbler with vinyl sand. And this third one that I'm doing is going to be the holographic silver offset. So you need all 3. I cut them out all at once, so I just have them ready to go when it's time. So super easy, cut them out in whatever colors you want. And then we will add the Rachel on first. So it looks a little thicker because the time I made the video for creating those 3 images was not the same time that I actually created this one. So this one is a little bit thicker. But you're going to lay it on to the spot that you want. As long as your epoxy is smooth and ready for this next step, you're going to make sure it's all laying flat the best that you can. And then I ended up having another side where it said something else. So I'll just fast forward a little bit, but you're basically just laying down your decals. So next up, we are going to take this flat black spray paint and we are going to cover the tumbler. So this is the color that they chose they wanted to do. You can do any color that your little heart desires. This was just the customer's preference. So you're going to make sure you coat it fairly well. You can sand the epoxy a little bit to make it stick a little bit better. That's all up to you. I think I ended up doing 2 coats of this to make sure that there was full coverage, even though I did end up like nicking it in one spot, but that's okay. So once you're done doing that and it's all dry, you are going to take off the vinyl that you put on. So the vinyl that I originally used was Oracle 631. I like using the removable vinyl for this because it's less likely to leave behind residue. And on top of that, I buy a big roll of just an ugly brown that I never use as often to do things like this. So I'm not wasting the white or the black vinyl that's more likely to be used. So I recommend just getting a big old roll of Oracle 631, like tan or gray or something like that you're not going to use as often as your other colors. So I'm going to fast forward up through this part a little bit, but I'm basically just carefully taking off the vinyl without trying to nick that spray paint. So this is the holographic vinyl I did. I'm cutting out the offset that I'm going to use. This is Tech Wrap. I got it off of Amazon. I can link it down below in the description. It's awesome to work with. It does take a little bit with weeding because I feel like it's a little fragile and it's hard. It doesn't stick to that paper as well. But you're literally just going to weed it out and then you're going to place it on top of the letters that you already have on there. And then you're going to epoxy several times, which I don't have a video. You want at least 2 to 3 layers of epoxy when you are adding a matte finish because you want it to be thick so that it doesn't end up going all the way down through what your design is. So this is a little bit more difficult on a curved tumbler. So I end up cutting the transfer tape as I go just to make sure that it's in the right spot. And I take up pieces that need to be fixed. So this is the other side, super easy to just lay it on top. So once you're done laying down all of your offset, making sure it's all lined up, I know I had spots here that were kind of overlapping, and that's okay. I did the best that I could. My customer loved it. It was great. Take your time on this. It can be difficult. So here is the wording with the offset. I end up wiping down the tumbler. I epoxy it, like I said, 2 to 3 more times, and then we're going to take that other decal that you see there, and we're going to put it over top of this. And then we're going to add our leopard spots. I had extra leopard spots from other projects, so I literally just placed those on. I didn't have to cut out any more, and it was ready to go. So I've shown the matte process before. I won't go too far into it because you can go refer to my like 5-minute video on matting, but you're going to use final sand. The only difference, which I kind of explained in the beginning or, told you to, that you're going to hear about it, but I still use I think it was like the 000 wool pads. If you use the finest wool pads there are, which I think is 4 zeros, so it's like pound 0000, that will give it a better finish. So you're just going to go into a circular motion and hit everything. Try not to scrub too hard because you don't want to pull up the vinyl. So I did have like a spot or two that ended up coming up, and that's okay. But you want to make sure you get in all the little crevices. Make sure, the hardest part for me with doing the final sand and getting that matte finish is the edges. So I kind of pay more attention to the edges. But I do want to note, there's no running water. I know that that was a huge complaint in my matte video from before, that I had running water the entire time. Again, my apologies. I'm more aware of what's going on. So I just, turned off the water and only turned it back on when I needed it. So again, you can watch my full matte video. I'll link that down below on how to matte a tumbler. But this is generally what you're going to do next with this vinyl. So after you've done several layers of doing the matte, you are then going to pull up every piece of vinyl that you got there. It's definitely a tedious process. I recommend using a tool. I didn't have one on me because I was in my kitchen and my sister was visiting, so I didn't feel like going downstairs. But yeah, you're just going to take off every piece of vinyl and then we'll move on to the next step. So the last thing you're going to want to do is, if that Oracle 631 vinyl left behind any residue, you can take 91% alcohol and wipe down your tumbler, and that'll pick up the residue and not ruin the matte look. It looks like it does right now, but as it dries, it'll go right back to matte, no issues. And then after that, you're done. Don't epoxy after doing the matte layer, because then you're going to have to do the matte layer all over again. The final sand is literally the last step besides cleaning the inside of your tumbler and your rim. So once you're done doing that, you just pack it away, send it off to your customer, and you are good to go. So again, here's the final result. It's a lot different, not in sunlight, but thanks for watching. Leave any questions below. Make sure you like this video and subscribe to my channel for videos that I post whenever I can. Thanks, guys.